Okay, cool. So I have this set up here. Let me get the pen. I have a brush. I would happily. There's a. This is a stock Photoshop brush that I just made some changes on. I'm just going to show you what it looks like. It's right here. I call it a pencil sketch brush. It looks a little different than that, but what I like is I was having this conversation earlier with a couple students, so I just thought I'd show you. I'm using this base sort of blue. Reminds me of old blue color erase pencils that we used to use in animation. So one of the first things I was lecturing to everybody about today when it comes to drawing your vehicle is make sure, step number one, make sure you have a dedicated line. So step number one here, we're going to place our horizon line up a little bit higher. That way we have the same perspective happening in the majority of our views. So what I'm going to do in here right now is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to lightly sort of sketch in a base cube shape. Okay. Now, I'm not measuring this. I know we can talk about perspective and be 100% accurate with it, and I'm a perspective freak and somewhat of a guru, but we're not going off to vanishing points right now. One of the big concerns I would have is that a lot of students that would be doing that is they're going to have their vanishing points in too close, and what you're going to end up doing is you're going to create this sort of effect right here. Let me do this in red so you can see it. You're going to have your VPs too close, and then when you create a cube, you're going to end up with this type of pinching feel, okay, where since the VPs are so close from here to here, they end up getting pinched off, and that's what we don't want to do right now. So what we're going to do is just sort of have this basic feel, okay, for now. If I were to go follow this, I could get very analytical, and I could come back, I could see that that's receding back, and it is getting smaller. If you wanted to be totally analytical about it, what you could do is create a measuring line on the side here. And this line would indicate to me that I would have some changes in the direction of this line. And then as it recedes up closer to the vanishing point, right up here, it's going to get more horizontal. I mean, to the vanishing point, to the horizon line. It's going to get more horizontal with it. This way, if you're measuring going across here and you get an angle like this in there, you know that you're off and you're wrong. Okay? But again, I'm not going to do that. Just I want you guys to sit and sketch. So to start with this basic cube and go from here. So that's step number one. Step number two is you want to create our box shape. Okay, so there's my box in perspective. So since it's underneath my horizon line right now, okay, I'll label this again, horizon line here, I can look on top and I can see three different facade views, which is really important to part of my design process. That's one of the downfalls for some of you that might have done this a little bit before, is whenever you do this horizon line shot like this and you're looking up at the vehicle, the downside is we're only seeing two facade views, okay? Versus if this were to be handed off to a 3D modeler, I've already incorporated what the top is supposed to look like and I'm giving them more information, okay? Step number three that we want to have is our center line, okay? So what is our center line? I'm going to sketch it in here really quick. By introducing a center line, it means I have to think about how my shape is being split in half. And most importantly, it gives me a visual guide for how this line is traveling through my box, which means I have to draw through my shape. So next now, if I come over here and lightly sketch on my box and bring down this corner here, I can find out where the back of my box is. And then once I do that, I can come back and then I can drop my center line down the back side of that. And if I bring my center line back forward through right here, I can see where it connects, and it gives me a good sense of having the ability to draw through my shapes. And that's really key here that a lot of you haven't quite hit. So a lot of you guys started off with little thumbnail studies of your vehicles on a flat side view, okay, and on an orthographic view. The downfall of that is now that we turn it and start thinking about how it works in perspective, we have to think about how we're also drawing through the shape here, okay? Before I start drawing into my car here, I was talking a little bit before about pushing and pulling of shapes, okay? What that means is that if I come into my box right now and if I start, I'm going to go ahead and divide this up based off of a couple demos that I was doing, and this is a real common theme for a lot of you guys on this assignment. So give me a second here. I don't do too good at doing two things at once here. So I'm going to go ahead and start to sculpt in part of my car here. Okay, I can adjust any shapes that I have in here in a couple minutes. Okay. What I'm thinking about doing right now is I'm going to have the lower portion, the body part of the vehicle, be a lot more condensed. And then to stylize it, I'm going to stretch the upper cab, which a lot of you have sort of already developed that. Okay, so I'm just going to sort of continue with this, and I'll just keep sketching. Now, some of you will notice we can take a couple liberties in our little distortion of shape here. Usually the front window piece tends to come somewhere off of that front fender. Usually the front window doesn't come too much past that. If you want to get in here and you want to round this and stylize it, you can. That's totally fine. So I might do that. I might get in here and just put a little bit of a round curve on here. But if I have this curve here, if I recede that back, that's going to be about right here as I draw through the shape. You see how that works? Okay, so now if I have that curve, I realize that it's going to come out here. It's going to curve off of the center line, and then my window is going to come back here. So this fender is going to drop back. Now if I come up here, I start to raise and I put in the angle of my windshield right here. Okay, and again, we're going for sort of a stylized approach. So I'm going to go ahead, let me speed this up here, and I'm just going to sketch this in a little bit faster. So this is our pass at our station wagon here, okay? Now, I've totally changed the shape variations from the top right up here compared to what's on the bottom, and that makes it automatically a more interesting design, okay? So next thing I want to do, the station wagons have a large front end. A lot of them, this is a time period of the 70s where the engines were huge, right? So I want to stretch the front of this out quite a bit too. And since I'm stretching that, I'm going to come back in here now. I'm probably going to erase this, but you know what? I'm just if I left it there, I mean, well, that would really throw it off. But let me come in here and see if I could end up the front of my cab about there. So I'm going to erase this in here. Uh-oh. Nope. That's a Cintiq thing wigging out. Okay. There we go. So now that I have, I'm going to look at this before I go into details. Let's just talk about what's happening here. Let me create another layer up above here. So really quick to go over this with red, okay? If you look here, I have, my perspective is working pretty good. I have a dedicated center line that I could drop down my vehicle that's hitting here. If I bring that center line forward, I can see where it's going to hit the front of my vehicle. I can see where it's going to wrap down below. I can see how that goes over the top of my vehicle. Because of that, I have a bowing surface here that's rounding, so I lose a little bit of that backside, which is fine. Okay, I can see how this comes through here. Now, this is the part that gets important. I can figure out how to draw through part of my shape in here. And that can be really important to me because as I'm working on my vehicle, I want to be able to also sketch the inside of the car. The other thing, too, is that you see this curve that's happening here from the body, and it's coming and going down this way. I want to match that curve. This side, I was freehanding it, and look at where my curve's going. It's going the wrong direction there. So what I can do is I can come in here and lightly erase some of this, and then I could go over that and make sure I'm matching up to this back corner. There we go. And then that way I'm getting, there's just a little bit of a variation there, but there's a difference there of the way that is coming down off the vehicle right there, okay? So I'm going to go ahead, I could take that off. I'm going to go back to the other layer. Let's go back to blue. So I notice that that's a fix that I want to be concerned about because that's what we call drawing through shapes and having a good understanding of how perspective works. So if I come in here and give me a second, see which layer was I on. There I am. I can come back here into my car now. You know what? I want to create another layer on this so I can detail this up a little bit. And I'm going to sort of come back, find that corner spot from here. There we go. Pitch that angle down a little bit like that. Okay. Now I'm going to come back in and just place in some of my detail. Okay, so this is where I'm going to want to go back and look at my reference. So give me a minute. I'm just going to dive in here, put some wheel wells in there. Throw in my base tire shape in here. Okay. Now this is part for me that's really important is that I need to be able to look at my reference and really make sure I'm getting the shapes correct in terms of the overall detail. So now I'm just drawing this out of my head, so I'm not looking at any reference right now. But it's funny, I've talked to 24 students tonight or whatever, so I've drawn a version of this car like 24 times. So I sort of have it memorized a little bit here. So I'm going to draw a front headlight there. I'm Might put like a square one down here, and then just to pop out another shape, I'm going to put maybe sort of a round version right in there, like that. Okay, just to create a little bit of a variation. So now I have to follow this through back over here to this side. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come over here, put that in there. I'm going to put this little side shape, come in over here, place there. Now I have that side. Now this front, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to make up a grill real quick. I want to get the center of that right. Come off the center line. I'm going to come down to about there. So, and drop that down about here. I might put some type of hood on my vehicle that's something that looks like about that. Okay. And then I might decide I want to have a bumper with a license plate on here. So these are some other elements that I'm going to place on. So I'm going to grab my bumper, pull it out a little bit in here, bring this off to the side a little like so. Okay, I have a bumper on my vehicle now. Plate. Do I want my plate to be in the grill? Do I want it to be on the bumper? If it's too low on the bumper, I just noticed that. I'm like turning instead of turning the Cintiq, drawing things at off angles. That's fine. We're having fun with this. I might make a bottom plate here. That's part of this. Maybe it comes up, drops down just a little bit like this. Because I want to emphasize sort of that big metal grill that these vehicles had. So then I might just come in here. I don't know why. Don't ask me why. I was just thinking of putting this shape in here. It's like one of those logos that you'd have for Chrysler Motors or something, right? And I'm just going to throw a couple lines going across here that's part of the grill shape. Like that, okay? Let's put the plate on. Right in here. Give me a second. Let me minimize my brush for a minute. Okay. All right, and now let's keep detailing it up. Let's get back in here. I have fender detail. What's some other details that I could put in there? A lot of times there used to be antennas on these vehicles. Okay, I'll get to that in a minute. Let's finish up part of the drawing here, see where we're at. So here's I'm going to throw my tire in the back here, sort of hitting it about the same place. Okay, since I'm going for a stylized approach and feel to this, I don't have to be too concerned about it being a 100% right now. I just want to have fun with it. I'm going to throw the windshield in here, and this is a part that my line sensitivity can play a lot. With windows tend to have rounded corners, so I'm going to try to thicken thin here with my Photoshop brush here and get these rounded corners and sort of come in here. Try to get that in the best way that I can, okay? There we go. All right, so that's top of window one. Then I'm going to come over here. Even though this might not be in the reference, I had an old Volkswagen Squareback that had one of these little front windows in it, so I'm going to go ahead and put this little side window right here that might pop open a little bit. I think that looks pretty cool. Okay, and then I might have my key window here. Now here's something, let me create another layer here. Creating too many layers, I'm going to forget what I'm working on. If I split my window right here, why is that not a good choice? Because if I do that, I'm creating two distinct shapes that are exactly the same. And so they sort of battle against each other, right? But what I can do, let me go, Command Z that. If I come back in here and I decide to make one door thicker, okay, like this, and then one window shape in the back different, it creates a variation of the shape, which is a little bit more interesting in my design, okay? So, however, though, I'm going to have two doors. So I need to think about, maybe I have sort of this first door is going to open up, and it's going to maybe open up from here. The second door might open here, and then there's another back window. So maybe I make this window be a little bit larger here. Bring that down about there. Okay. Then this one I'm going to make a little bit smaller in the back here. Okay. And then I might have this sort of large open window. Uh-oh, that was the Cintiq wigging out. It does that every now and then. It's frustrating. And I might even come back and modify that in the end. Okay. So there. Let's go ahead. Let's dive in here. Let me just sketch in rough. Oops. Okay, let me get that in there. All right, just throw a couple little door handles in there. Okay. I can put wood paneling in there. I don't want to do that right now, though. I might put a little bit of a they have that little flared lip sometimes on the base here. This is where I don't have it, but little note, if any of you guys work with a Cintiq at all, you can always use a plastic ruler. Works really great for drawing lines. It doesn't scratch up the Cintiq at all. Okay, so I have that. Now let's talk about. Now I'm going to add some other details in here and see what else I might want to push. Okay, so I want to see if I can come back here. What if I push this? This is where I want to look at my reference and then really take a look. What do the back end of those Eldorados look like? What do the back end of those big Ford Fairlane station wagons? How do they angle down? Some of these angle down, and they had like huge lights that receded out from them with like metal bumpers that wrapped on the outside of them. So I might decide to put something like that on it, right? There could be, this is back in the 70s and 80s when pollution was like a normal thing, right? So there might be like a huge, now everything has to pass a California standard emissions test, right? Might have like a huge muffler that's sticking out of here, okay? I put this light up on the front here. There used to be some little side lights that might be like up here that were like little reflective lights that I might have. I might come in here, put a little gas tank cover, even though some of these had gas tanks on the rear, like you pull down the license plate. But the one thing that I noticed in these station wagons was that they had these huge mirrors on the side. So I thought that'd be a lot of fun because these station wagons would tow. So I might come in here and just sort of mount up a light bracket like this and then come in here and really exaggerate this sort of large shape right here. And I could adjust that later and figure out exactly how I want it to be, but that might be part of my station wagon's extra tow trailer kit that I'm paying extra for, which is what it was back then. When I bought my Toyota Tundra truck, I paid $500 extra to have mirrors that would pull out another 8 inches. Back then, I guess they weren't thinking about things. So I'm going to go from the top of this, try to carry that line over. It's going to give me a good idea how the top of this should connect right about in here. Maybe there's a bracket here in the middle or something that holds it together. Okay, there. So now you can see the other mirror on the opposite side here. And now let's talk about little details, right? I might come over here. I might put in an antenna of some kind. They used to have the power antennas that would get a little bit smaller and they get a little bit thicker, a little bit thicker. Okay. Let's talk about the seat, some of that detail. I'm going to go ahead and throw a dash in here. Even though I might hit a little bit of a tangency right now. It's right there. That's fine. You know what? No, it's not fine. I changed my mind. I look at that and I'm like, ugh. So let me Command Z that and go back. Let's find the center right here. See, no matter what, I'm going to hit that mirror. So I might move that mirror off. So I'm just going to cheat and put a light indication right in here. Now let's go ahead. Let's talk about some of the seats in here. Let me throw in what might be some indication of the steering wheel. Okay. They used to have like instruments, gauges, like the top part might pop up a little bit more that's in here. I have, remember the hanging down mirror, right? Again, it's a box. I'm looking down and I'm going to see the top of it. Okay. I'm going to have seats back in here. I'm going to have a little door lock in there, right? Door lock in the back. So I'm going to have a seat that's going to be probably about, let's say about right here. Let's bring that line over here. Let's go from this corner, bring that line back here. That's where the other angle of the seat would be hitting, about there. Okay. Oops. That's the Cintiq wigging out again. Now I need to decide, do I want to have bucket seats? It's all part of my little details now as I continue to sketch in here. I have to do the rear seat in here. Let me just make one large seat sort of in the back here. Let's find that where that starts. It's going to end about there. That means it's going to round about there. There we go. Okay. Now this would another example. This would be great where I could be looking at my reference and figure out what did the seats look like. Now I'm just sort of winging it and seeing what I come up with. Okay. Something else. Let me go ahead. Let me select all or move this down a little bit here. Up. You know what? Let me try if I can do this and see which layer is on what. I want to move the drawing down because I want to add to it a little bit. So this is a good part. Just to stop real quick for a second. Look at where I started. Box shape, horizon line, box, center line. Then I started crafting details, started carving out of this. Okay. Then I put my detail in there. Look at the transition. Now I have the seats, I have the mirrors, I have the antenna, I have all that good stuff. So I'm going to go ahead. I have so much of this on multiple layers. Let me just merge all my layers and commit to them real quick and find out what's on what. So let me see. Hold on, guys. Select all, V. Let me see if I can move this down. There we go. Okay, deselect. Okay, deselect again. All right, why is it not deselecting? Oops. There it goes. All right, so hold on, the computer's wigging out. And deselect again. And I didn't open you. Okay. Brush. Okay, so now if I want to add to my, talk about the character and the shape here, let's say I want to add a little bit more to it, right? Some of you guys didn't do this. I have the roof rack. The roof racks were great in these vehicles. So I need to come in here right now. Even though I'm really close to my horizon line, I'm going to cheat. Okay, I'm going to throw a roof rack in here. Let me get a cool angle on it first, like this maybe. Even though I'm really close to that horizon line, I'm going to go ahead and just cheat it and pretend my horizon line's a little bit higher. Okay, there, I got my roof rack in there. Now I'm going to go ahead and let me just throw some rough furniture up in there just to have fun with it, okay? And this could add a lot of character to my vehicle. So instead of putting a suitcase in and throwing my suitcase in like this, straight and stiff and boring, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to come back over here. Let me put a suitcase in that has a little bit of a tilt to it, okay? I'm above my horizon line, so now I can't see on top of it, okay? I might cheat this, even though I couldn't really see part of the handle. There's part of my suitcase there, okay? Let me just throw a round shape in here. Maybe it's like a sleeping bag or something that's rolled up, okay? Maybe there's another sort of squared shape that's in here. So I have that. Let's put a boxy shape here. If you ever want to get great reference for this, think of Family Vacation. Remember Vacation? Where Chevy Chase is driving that Ford Fairlane across country and it's all stacked up. Okay? So there. Now I get that sort of shape up on here. Let me just see if I put a couple little things. And I was talking about earlier about breaking the silhouette shape to a student. So as I'm doing this, not that I'm cheating, but I've done this a lot of times where I'm thinking about something as I'm working right now. And let me show you what that is. Okay? This is what I'm talking about. This is visually appealing, guys. You see that? Look at that silhouette shape. It reads. It doesn't just stay contained. If you're working on your if you're working on your vehicle, your station wagon, and if you end up with this, it could work, but sometimes it doesn't feel as interesting. So the more I figure out a way to exaggerate that, and don't get me wrong, some of you guys had rounded top vehicles, that's totally fine, okay? But for me, by adding that luggage on, even I just want to come in here and I just want to do this. I just want to throw two other things back here. I want to have a fishing line back here for some reason, like a little hook on it, flinging in the wind. Okay, and that would be my first pass. That would be my station wagon. That would be my rough. Okay, so then what I would do after that is I would come over here. Let's create another layer. I'm going to draw on this in red. Now I would think about, what if I change my shape language, okay? What if I figured out a way to push my shapes in opposite directions? So instead of this portion here being much larger than this portion, okay, what if I came in here and if I decided to lower the windows? Or what if I just wanted to really round the top? Let's stick with rounding the top. You'd be amazed just by coming in here and putting more of a rounded edge on my vehicle. Just taking off the small, 10% of that corner right there. Just by taking that off right there, totally changes part of the design shape of the vehicle. Okay? That would be the same thing here. Instead of on the front, what if I wanted to come up here? I have an angle that's pitching right in there, right? If I wanted to come into this now and do this, and round it back, it's going to totally change the feel of the vehicle. If I want to put a rounded hood like this and have these be Fender Flares that are sort of coming in here, take off the grille, put a round emblem of some kind. You see how immediately the vehicle changes? Okay? So sometimes it's not that hard to change the look of the vehicle. It's just pushing and pulling some of these shapes. That's the benefit of you guys having tracing paper and going over your thumbnails or your sketches. Okay? Is that you can go in and do this. So the last thing I wanted to leave you with is just, give me a second. Let me select all. Let me delete all the red that's in there. Okay? And then let me get the layer that everything's on. Oh, can't lose the fishing pole, right? Let me merge these together really quick. There. Let me subtract out of this real quick. And hold on a minute. Let me transform it. Oops. Sorry. I'm using a keyboard underneath everything. Let me pull this right here. Deselect. Okay. So now as I continue, I already wrote the steps on here. Horizon line, box, center line. Okay. But now this is a great way to draw now for you to continue forward, is just do these little sketches on the side here and think about other vehicles. And sometimes it's when you hit like your fifth or sixth one and you're feeling really tired, you're about to go to bed, where you come up with a better solution. Jose, you did an excellent job on these, coming up with these little variations in here. But now I'm going to come in here. Oops. Let me switch back to blue. Oops, X. There we go. So now I'm going to come in here and think, well, what if I had a body that was really thick and had a small front window piece? What would that look like? Maybe he has an antenna on the back, and maybe he has larger wheels. Does that feel like a station wagon? Maybe it's not station wagon enough. Maybe I have to raise this. So if there's something that's not working in your little sketch, come back in and figure out a way to exaggerate it and make it work. Take something that you wouldn't have normally done and really bend it, throw it out of context to see what happens. Think outside the box. That's how you go for something totally different than you were. And I'm not worried about my perspective now. I'm just throwing down an idea. What I like about this idea, even though I don't like the drawing, but I like this. I succeeded by coming across with one thing. I angled the windows. And I really like those shapes that I got in there. So now, as I move forward, I would do another little sketch. And I would think about doing another little design. Maybe from a front view, I'm thinking about bowing out my vehicle like this. So maybe the tires end up being a little bit of a pitched angle. And there's just like this huge front grille right here. Maybe something like that. So if I come over here and I start to sketch that shape in, again, I'm just going for little variations to see what I end up with. What if I scrunch this guy, bring part of the cab forward? So before I do these, I just wanted to do one detail drawing for you, but before I even do that, guys, this is what I do when I'm working at home. I just sit and I do a whole series of little thumbnails like this, and then I see where the designs take me. Even when I'm in my sketchbook, I do the same thing. I sit. There, so, What's precision mode? Hold on. I hit something in the Cintiq here. Oh, come on, get off of that. Nope. Hold on, guys. My hand hit. There it goes. Okay. I'm used to my Cintiq at home, not this one. But there, now I sort of like that idea of I rounded the nose here. I pitched this at an angle. It's sort of coming forward a little bit. And, I might want to add on to that. I could do another sketch on that. I like, a couple students in class had a couple ideas. 2 students did this where they came in here and they started putting some light Fender Flares over the wheels. It's a great idea. That was something that was incorporated back then. So I might sketch out another vehicle here. I mean, start with a large shape. Like think of boat. Like if I have a boat shape like that, then think about how I might be able to carve into this. Lost my brush shape. Some type of huge, heavy grill. A larger tire in the rear, maybe. And if that shape doesn't work, go back into it, draw on top of it, push and pull. It's all part of a step. There's nothing wrong with not having, like, I don't like this drawing right here. It sort of looks like a DeLorean, which isn't the direction I wanted it to go in, right? But if I get one thing out of that, which was the idea of the small to large tire, I could go in here now and I could erase some of it. And I could think about modifying part of the body or the shapes and coming up with another direction to move into. So just by coming in now and doing that, I change the shape of it. Okay? Don't always feel like everything has to be perfect. It doesn't. It's part of the drawing process to go from step A to B. Just to think about how you might. Now, I don't like that. I put that curve in there. I don't know. It felt sort of cool to do that and then come down and go to a straight edge. So maybe this is, you know what? Maybe this is the hillbilly version with the big blower top on it. Okay? So I'd had a drawing that wasn't working as well for me, right? And now I exaggerated it. Now I got to this step, right? So I could do another version of this one and really push up the back tires, maybe really emphasize, I could end up doing something a little bit more maybe like this, where it's really pushed, right? Where there's like really small and then there's a huge back tire and then really emphasize the blower coming out of it. And then the rest is all Americana station wagon, let's say, that's in here. Okay? But you can see where I'm getting at. So what I want to do, and the best design choice for you, is I want to spend my time in this phase over here. Okay? And this is what some of you guys were supposed to have done, but I wanted to let some of you guys have never even drawn cars before. And so some of you drew cars exactly realistic, how that looks, which is fine. Now it's about going in and it's about thinking about this goodness here. It's about thinking about, what is the shape variation? Is this a lot larger in terms of the shape? Is this smaller? Does this get pinched off and have an angle on it? It's all that good stuff put together, and it's about pushing and pulling of shapes. So if any of you in here are interested in becoming good designers, becoming character designers, learning and understanding how to draw props, working on stylized shows, okay, which is pretty much encompasses the majority of visual development and conceptual positions out there, you have to be good at being able to modify and play with your shapes. And so this is exactly what I'm doing. I'm just diving in here. Sometimes I even leave this detail process of what I did right here, and I go all the way back to just sitting and thinking about this. Sometimes you can come up with a great, go back to blue. Sometimes you come up with, hit X, there we go. Simple solutions just by thinking side views. Thinking small, maybe small base, big fenders, arched front window. So I'm going from thicker to thinner. Okay. Let me get the angles on this right. Thinking of like contrapposta. Maybe this is angled here this way. Maybe a larger tire here, smaller tire here, huge bumper and stuff here. Okay, and if that doesn't work, that doesn't work, I go back and I do another one. And then I go back and I start thinking of the shapes again. And then you come up with something. I had someone in the class who showed me this, and I thought it was a great idea because it's somebody who I consider to be sort of like a master illustrator in a sense. Is think of the Dr. Seuss. Dr. Seuss, when he would do a vehicle, how would Dr. Seuss do a station wagon? He would never, ever have, everything would have a rounded edge to it. Try drawing a station wagon with nothing but rounded edges. It's going to challenge you because it's going to be something that you're not used to. So that might be my first rough right there. And then I go off of that and think about how to push and pull the shape and go from there. Okay? Any questions about that? All right, cool. Let me go ahead and save this real quick. Have fun with it. Dive into it. 1 second. Let's figure out how to pause this.